Welcome into King Wales album review party. Today we sorry, today we are talking about the latest album from Sabrina Carpenter, and that is Short and Sweet. Of course, her songs Espresso and Please, Please, Please have been blowing up the charts this past summer. I think people anointed that's those two songs and Not Like Us by Kendrick as like the songs of the summer. And for good reason, because they've been absolutely crushing it. But first, before we delve into that, how's it going, Ty? How's everything been? How's life?
It's going delightfully. I just finished a 5-page paper this morning, and I've got another 3-page paper to write after this.
Someone's just living large.
Living
Living
large
the life, just
in
having a good old time.
academia.
Oh, gotta love it. Yeah, yes. So clinicals and everything have been going well.
Yes. One more year. One
One
more
more
year.
year.
One
All
more
right,
year.
man.
One more
Gotta
year.
count it down. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
that's all you got to do is you keep chanting it until it comes true.
That's what comes true. Okay, so I know we both got a chance to check out this album, Short and Sweet, which is I'm not gonna say it's like very different from most of the albums that we talk about. But lately we've been it's been a lot of hip hop, and I know because like I love hip hop, so it kind of makes
Mhm.
sense. So it feels nice to like kind of diversify our genres a little bit more.
Yes.
Um, so what were your do you have any high points from Short and Sweet, or what were your initial thoughts just after that first listen?
So I going into this album, I was wanting to hear from a couple of things because this isn't her debut, but this
Mm,
is definitely the first album she's released after she has picked up such incredible I can't
success.
even think of the right word, but like
Success.
popular
Yeah,
success. Yeah,
popularity. Yeah, yeah.
because she's been making music
Hmm.
for years and years, but this is the first time that like people who weren't plugged into her music beforehand are hearing about it. Like this is now she's where like she just hosted or not hosted, she just performed a major set at the VMAs. Um
Mm-hmm.
and like people like my mom now know about Sabrina Carpenter. And so my biggest thing was seeing, okay, how does that translate? How do the singles translate to the feel of the album? Is this
Hmm.
going to feel like a one hit wonder kind of track where she gets the spark and then it fades? It doesn't feel like that, but let's see what else she has to offer. And then on that initial listen, I was very happy to hear that it feels like she captured a lot of that success throughout. There's
Hmm.
definitely there's definitely things that I don't think for me work on the album. But when it does work, it's incredibly catchy. That was like the problem with Espresso is I really liked the song, but I liked it too much, and it became an earworm that it's embedded itself in my head
In my
for
head, yeah.
for weeks at a time. And there's a
Accurate.
couple other songs on here that do the exact same thing that weren't even singles that I'm like, okay, she's just really great at making these incredibly catchy, like,
Hmm.
just really good songs
Yeah,
that dig its way into your head.
I couldn't agree more. And like, I wouldn't necessarily call myself like a big fan of Sabrina Carpenter.
Hmm.
But like I knew about her before this recent blow up that she's had.
Hmm.
Um, excuse me. Because she had, and I think it's like for any artist, if you've known Sabrina Carpenter and her music, it's a really cool story to follow because she's been doing this for 10 years and she came up in the social media era. And now it can kind of feel like as an artist in social media, it's like if you don't like your shot is only gonna come after you blow up. Like you gotta have that one song or that one TikTok or something that goes viral, and then you blow up, and then you'll be next thing you know releasing songs with Taylor Swift and Post Malone. Like it's kind of like
Right.
a there's only one way to do it. You just have to blow up. And obviously Sabrina Carpenter did, but she's been doing this for so long, even though she's so young. Like she's only a little bit older than my little brother. Um, but her first single came out in 2014. And she's been, doing shows, touring and stuff. And back then she was an artist that maybe had like like 500,000 listeners or something, like maybe a million fans or something like that. Um, not underground, but definitely not like a household name or mainstream. And then she slowly did more tours, more shows, more singles, more music, till eventually she got to open up for Taylor Swift on a lot of her shows. She had a couple of songs that went viral on TikTok with I think it was Nonsense that came out last year. And then this year, with Espresso being released at the exact perfect timing, she shot up to be one of the top like 10 artists in the entire country, which I didn't
Mhm.
know that she would like I always liked her and I liked her voice and we have a lot of songs about her on a couple of our playlists that my wife and I listen to.
Mhm.
But I didn't expect Espresso to get this big and this to launch her to this point. And so I think it's just a good reminder that like no matter what point you want to be at, the fact that it's taking time is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. I mean, again, it's hard to look at Sabrina Carpenter and be like, well, it took time for her because she's still like 25. So it's like she's like right in her prime and she's still super young. But again, she
Mhm.
has been doing this for 10 years. She's been doing it. So if you've been doing it for 10, 15, even 20 years, sometimes it can just take time and that's okay. Just keep working
Mhm.
hard, keep trying to do shows. And this is kind of a message I try to tell myself as an artist, because I don't necessarily want to like get as big as she did. But it's like, like I said, a lot of people are kind of focused on the end goal rather than the destination. And it feels rather than the journey. And it feels
Mhm.
like with her career, it feels like she's always been focused on the journey. And of
Mhm.
course she was like, a Disney star on that show Girl Meets World. And so a lot of her music back then was like that very kind of like pop rock blend of songs, that appeals a lot. Yeah, yeah, she was
Mhm.
on Girl Meets World. It was
I
like a
did not know
revival of
she
Boy
was on
Meets
Girls
World.
Meet World.
Hmm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I used to watch her as a kid growing up because I was like, I think that show came out in 20. I don't remember when that show came out, but I used to watch it and like, and she was on it. And that's how I got introduced to her actually. Because she's also a very talented actress. But anyway, so back to this album. Um, I feel like it shows a lot of I guess what's the word? Growth, and maturity, obviously. Like as artists get older, they tend to like their lyrical quality and tends to get deeper. Um,
Mhm.
but I also feel like her she's gotten a lot better. What's the right word for it? It's like her because like on this one song called Eyes Wide Open, which was on her first album in 2015, she
Mhm.
showcases an incredible vocal performance of like holding out a note for a very long time and being able to sing it with power and delivery and everything. And there aren't a whole lot of harmonies. Like she's always been great at it, but it wasn't like her calling card. And on
Mhm.
this album, I feel like she was able to really, really hone that in. Like if you just listen to her music over the years, she's adding more harmonies and more complex harmonies to all of her singles. So now when people hear songs like Please, Please, Please or Espresso, they're like, what are you talking about? This song is full of her harmonies. Like
Mhm.
like you think that this is something she's always done, but she really hasn't. This is I'm not
Mhm.
gonna say like it's newer, but it's definitely something that she's introduced into her music. And of course, that's a very R&B style of 5, 6, 7, 9 part harmonies. And I think it sounds really good throughout this entire album. So for me,
Yeah.
my number one track on this album is definitely Good Graces. That's the standout for
Mm.
me, even above the
Mhm.
singles. I
Yeah.
think Taste is a really good way to get into the album. It
Yeah.
really sets the
Really
tone for
strong
the entire
opener.
project. Yeah, yeah. I think Good Graces could have been successful as a single, but I think it's good that she released it not as a single and just left it as the third song in the album because Good Graces, like it was that perfect time where that was a song that made me like, okay, I'm gonna finish this whole thing. And like that's the kind of song
Mhm.
that you need because like again, Taste introduces you to the album. Please, please, please gives you a song that you've already heard. You're like, okay, I know this song, like I've listened to it, now I'm going through the album. So you're familiar with it. And then like usually it's like the third or fourth song is where someone decides if they're going to finish this album or not. If someone's listening to your album, the third or fourth song has got to hook them. And Good
Mhm.
Graces, it was like, I'm going to finish this entire album, whether I end up liking all of it or not, because this song itself is just so good and catchy. And like,
Right.
it was such like a throwback R&B, but still with modernized production. Um, and it worked. It worked extremely well. Like I said, it's one of my favorites on the album. Looks like Julia Michaels helped write that one. which is not surprising. Um, and so yeah, and then my second favorite one is probably Juno,
Hmm.
just because it felt very cute to me. I saw that movie Juno as a kid, and so it's like it kind of felt like that's the kind of movie that like we're not exactly in the same generation, but like she was
Hmm.
born 99, I was born 97, so like we both saw Juno when we were around the same age, and
Hmm.
so it kind of felt like interesting looking back at that movie that we probably saw as kids and thinking
Hmm.
about it as adults. You know what I mean? Because
Hmm.
like again, it came out in '07. We were like 10, maybe 8. And so like I
Hmm.
saw it back then, but like now it's like kind of refreshing the idea of it as an adult. And it's just cool. So
Right.
yeah, very solid. Like I said, Good Graces and Juno are my top picks on this entire album.
I think Good Graces is definitely up there. It's definitely one of my faves, but I think Bedchem for me outstretches it just a little bit because I
Hmm.
think it's like the perfect like romantic song. Like
Yeah.
it's so catchy. I think it's the catchiest song on this album,
Oh yeah.
personally. It's the biggest earworm for me. I was never a big fan of Please, Please, Please. I never really liked that single, and I was
Oh really?
hoping more of the album would gear towards Espresso more. If I had to pick a single for
Hmm.
the album, to feel more represented by, I'd rather it be Espresso. And I feel like we got kind of like an even spread. But
Hmm.
on those little more slower emotional tracks, I really like her vocal range on Dumb and Poetic. It starts off, it feels a little almost too simple, but then like her vocal range by the end is really blowing up, and I'm like, okay, this is like you showing your prowess as a singer right here. Like I'm really enjoying what she does there. And then yeah,
Hmm.
Juno is absolutely one of my favorites here. I was
Yeah.
not expecting so much of what felt like country influence
Yeah.
in this
Yeah.
album.
Hmm.
I was expecting, again, kind of like Espresso, more of like an 80s synth
Yeah.
like pop from it, especially considering the album cover feels very reminiscent of like, I don't know, like a Kate Bush, or like those singer-songwriters of like the 70s, 80s, 90s. I
Hmm.
was expecting the album itself to feel more like that. And I think I wonder, my my small conspiracy theory is I think it may have to do with a Taylor Swift kind of influence on other singer-songwriters coming up,
Hmm.
because she had that, especially earlier on in her career, she had that blend of country and pop. And I feel like if that's going to influence anything, not just like her selling out arenas, but I think that style, um this is like an example of how that style has kind of influenced pop to come up, of blending the singer-songwriter pop with the country influence. And it's not that it like didn't work, it just caught me by surprise.
Yeah. And I think if you like again, Sabrina Carpenter has always had a wide range of genres that she sang in.
Mhm.
Um, So like knowing her music, because I knew some of her music, I wasn't as surprised because this feels like kind of her roots. I think by like Espresso and Please 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 introduced her to the world, and it kind of seemed like it introduced her as like a disco artist almost because again, that's what those two songs are the biggest songs that she's been known for. And so you listen to this album and you kind of get more of a full range of what she can do and what she sings. And like I
Mhm.
said, if you had heard of her before this, it's not as surprising. Like I'm kind of uh I'm more surprised just in how country it is, I guess. Like that it was that like some of them feel like straight up country songs rather than just like country influence. Um
Mhm. Mhm.
because like I feel like Taylor Swift she'll still have like a couple of country songs on like her albums. But she's like kind of delved like kind of when she merged like pop and country, it feels like she just ends up in folk, where that's just kind of where like any of those slower songs that don't aren't really like electronically produced heavily, they just kind of
Hmm.
end up feeling more folky than they necessarily do country.
Hmm.
But with Sabrina Carpenter, like obviously, a lot of fans of Taylor Swift will probably like Sabrina Carpenter. But like I couldn't hear like when you think of Espresso, I couldn't hear Taylor Swift releasing a song like Espresso. Like I'm sure that
Hmm.
she could and has the vocal talent to do it. I just would never expect her to release something that feels and sounds like that.
Like that,
Such like
right?
a disco, like 80s kind of. Same thing with Please, Please, Please. Like I'm sure she could do it. I just couldn't see it happening as like that would be like her style. So I think
Yeah.
that's part of it. And I think we were kind of expecting it to feel like Espresso the album, like how Bruno
Hmm.
Mars released Uptown Funk, that was his biggest single, and then he released a whole album basically that was like Uptown Funk the album.
The
Like
album,
it
right?
was pretty much just it. And so I think I don't know. Like maybe I would have wanted to hear that a little bit more with Espresso, but I also think like Espresso and Good Graces are two completely different, like they live in completely different areas. Like if this entire album was like a disco album based upon Espresso, like very similar to that, I don't think Good Graces would have fit because it's far more R&B, even just like the synth production and everything. It is
Right.
2000s R&B. Like when like the music that Espresso is based on the music that Good Graces is based on wasn't out yet because Espresso is based on 80s music. Good Graces is based upon 2000s R&B and a little bit of
And
90s R&B, but mainly
and I,
2000s.
I think for me that kind of like it feels like a double-edged sword there because like when I listen to Good Graces, I don't really hear Sabrina Carpenter. I think, oh, this is just like a Ariana Grande B-side. Like this is
Mm,
just an Ariana Grande song that I just haven't heard before. I don't really hear, but when I hear something like Bedcam or Juno or Espresso, I hear this is something uniquely Sabrina Carpenter.
I agree.
And
I
I
agree.
think that's like the thing that I was
Hmm.
looking more for. Not that you can't have influence. I don't mean to say that. I don't think Sabrina Carpenter does a bad job by any means. It's
Hmm.
just I wish the album felt more individualistic in her sense. Instead of to me feeling like some tracks feel so heavily influenced by another artist that
Hmm.
the influence feels like it takes over
Yeah, no,
and
I
feels
definitely
like
hear what
it's
you're
someone
saying.
else's song.
That makes sense because, like you said, whoever wrote Good Graces, like I could see them giving that song to Ariana Grande, and it would probably sound exactly the same.
Yeah,
Um, Maybe just a little bit different based upon their vocal tonality, but I could definitely
right,
see Ariana Grande doing a song like that because most of her songs are like that.
right.
But I still couldn't really see even Ariana Grande doing a song like Espresso. That
No,
feels like that's Sabrina Carpenter's kind of lane. And like, I can't really think of, I mean, I'm sure there's someone I could think of if I really thought about it, but I probably couldn't think of somebody who could do something like, um, Espresso right now who any female vocalist I couldn't really think of somebody who would release something in that style. And so I think that's part of the surprise to me on this album. Like if it was up to me, I think the second track, I would have made that Espresso and I would have made Please 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 later on. I don't know if
mhm,
they had already decided on the track list order when the singles came out, and like Please 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 still was did very, very well as a single and still helped to
mhm,
rocket her to this level.
mhm,
Um, but it's not espresso. Like it's just not the
right,
same. It's just not espresso.
mhm,
And with espresso, like I don't know if, like I said, if they already had the track list locked in and it was like we can't change it, and they weren't anticipating Espresso to get so much bigger than Please, 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 maybe. I think I'm just gonna start saying please because saying it over and over again is like causing the alliteration.
it's like
So
we
we're just
get the
gonna call it
point. We
please
know
now.
what
Yeah,
song we're
yeah,
talking
we know what we're
about.
talking about. So I think I probably would have made Espresso track number three over please. And
Yeah,
I still think that would have flowed everything and it still would have really like hooked people the same way. But I see what you mean. Some of the songs it feels like heavily influenced by someone. Like I said, obviously the slower ballad songs feels like it could be Taylor Swift singing those
mhm,
easily. Like you could have passed that song to Taylor Swift or Billie
mhm,
Eilish or anybody really, who's kind of in that, country folk lane. But with Espresso, Please, I think Juno also kind of feels like that's a very Sabrina Carpenter. Just I feel like that's
right.
where we kind of get more of her like storytelling, not
Yes.
necessarily like her writing and her personality. That's what I'm looking for. Her
Yes.
personality comes through a lot more on Juno. And I agree. Like Good
100%.
Graces, I mainly like it because of the track, the music, not necessarily because it's Sabrina Carpenter singing it. Like she does a
Right.
fantastic job.
It's a good song. It's a really good song.
But if I had to say like which song on this album do I think makes me think of Sabrina Carpenter the most and is like her
Hmm.
personality and everything, I would say Juno. I would say
Yeah,
like even above the singles, I think I would be like if someone was like, "Hey, what is Sabrina Carpenter about?" I would tell them to go listen to
I would
Juno.
send up Juno. Yeah,
Yep.
no, I agree with that 110%.
Hmm.
I think it's the song that best encapsulates her, and I want to see like I think this album does a really good job at. I think I like that we have different perspectives from her career because me just kind of learning about her, this is going to be the tastemaker for her music going forward. Is this album, and in that sense, there's a lot of pressure on it
Hmm.
because so many people are now suddenly introduced to Sabrina Carpenter. I can't imagine the pressure to try to build an album that like feels like a continuation of what you've been evolving, but now from this sudden burst, it's like how do I also make like the perfect, first introduction? How do I make this like the hey, here's what I can do, like almost like here's my resume, here's
Hmm.
my skill set. And so I would love to see her delve into the Juno side uh going forward. But I think from like the sense of introducing people to her style. I think she's got me excited for whatever she does next, and she's got me
Hmm.
interested in looking back at what she's done before. I think the biggest question I had going forward is she going to be a one-hit wonder? I flatly think absolutely not. I think she has too much power, and she's got too much skill and dedication to this craft to be a one-hit wonder.
Hmm. Yeah, she's also got a lot of youth and a lot of energy on her side, which I think helps out a lot. Because she'll be doing this for a very long time.
Mhm.
And I think it's so funny because again, like you said, this album kind of introduced her to the world as one of the top artists. And when you have an album like that, sometimes you don't want to focus on just one style because it's like this entire album, like I want like you're trying to draw in as many people as possible. So you show like a whole range of styles of things that you can do. And it's like, but at the same time, she's been releasing music for like 10 years. So it's like, like if I was at this point 10 years into my career, I probably would want to release an album that kind of focused on one genre so I could really hone it in and be like, okay, this is my R&B album or like this is my jazz album or this is my hip hop album. But it's
Mhm.
like for most people, a lot of them don't know um her that much. So like
Mhm.
I kind of see like wanting to make a wide range of styles on this project. And then, like I said, maybe on the next one, be like, okay, now that I've got like such an audience, I can do my country album or do my R&B album or just do my disco album or something like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think it is really exciting to see what she's going to do in the future. Like I said, I've already been following her and now I have even more reason to continue doing so. And like I said, I just love the idea of Juno because it's like a lot of songs about like having children, like they obviously talk about how much they love their children, which makes a lot of sense. Obviously that's kind of why you should have children because you want to love them. But to me, it's like the idea that you are so in love with somebody that you just want to have their kids, even if you like don't love kids that much. I just love
Mhm.
that idea because it's like she's literally talking about like I'm going to love these children because it's like a second you. Like I love
Mhm.
you so much, I want children now. And like I can really relate to that because like I don't not there's not an announcement or anything. Do not want kids, not having kids. But like I never considered the possibility until I got married and fell so deeply in love that's like, oh, now I could see myself actually doing this.
Mhm.
Even though like the concept of kids was never like a thing. Again, not going to happen,
Mhm.
making that very clear. But
You get
I can
you
understand
get
it.
it. You
I can relate
understand
to it.
this specific song and the
Yeah.
sentiment behind it from
Yeah.
your own experience.
And it's like it's just adorable. I think that's just the best way to describe it. So yeah.
So you heard it here
Um
first, folks. King Whale's having a Prince
no.
Whale.
Now I just might, just because I didn't realize how catchy that might be.
Prince
Man,
or Princess Whale? Come
King and
on.
Prince Whale on tour or Princess Whale on tour. Oh man, that is a stadium filler right
If
there.
your kid was a musician,
What do you mean if?
absolutely, that's true.
My kid's gonna be a musician. Like it's gonna happen.
No ifs, ands, or buts.
Yeah, no, this is just that's not a choice they get to make, like
They are learning to
again.
play the saxophone by age 3. It's not up
uh,
for discussion.
mhm. Again, not an announcement, not an announcement, not an announcement. Just making that very clear.
Mhm.
But anyway, so let us know your thoughts on Sabrina Carpenter's Short and Sweet.
Mhm.
My original plan was to like keep this episode more like short and sweet, as tune with the album, but we ended up having
Mhm.
more to say about it than I thought, which is good though, because it was a really great album.
Mhm.
And I think, yeah, I think if you just want to enjoy some music, like throw it on. Throw it on. It works for car rides, it works for making dinner, it works for literally maybe even studying if you don't mind dancing a little bit while you're studying, either anything that you got to do. So let us know your thoughts.
She is here to stay.
She is here to stay, that's for sure. And I think I agree. Let us know your thoughts. Let us know if there are any other albums or anything else that you want us to review. And we will catch you guys next time.
Until then.